So at the beginning of this year, I really started to get into reading. One of the books I read this year was On the Other Side by Carrie Fletchers. I recently, the end of 2016 or so, got back into Carrie. I hadn't watched her for a number of years, but I love her and she's very sweet, and when she was writing a book, I decided to give it a chance. I'm very weary. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm very cautious when buying YouTuber books because at the time when Zoella released her book, Girl Online, couldn't remember the name, there was a huge controversy about how she didn't actually write it, it was ghostwritten, and so I was mad at it prior though, and I can kind of have some issue when YouTubers release books, because as someone who is an aspiring writer, it's kind of hard because I feel like sometimes that YouTubers' books are published because they already have a brand name, but that's a whole different video. Regardless, just because I am a fan of Carrie's doesn't mean I'm gonna give this special treatment. Everyone who I consider a friend, per se, I will always be very harsh and push them to do better if I believe that they can do better. So this is going to be an honest review. I'm not going to just tear it apart. Like, there are going to be some good things and there are going to be some bad things. This is fairly accurate to at least how I saw the book and how I saw her write it. So right off the bat, this was an incredibly cute story. I did not expect to love a romance as much as I did. I am not a romance person, or at least I haven't been for a very long time. There was a number of years where I just could not stand romance books. I could not stand, like, protagonist falling in love with blah blah blah. It just annoyed me. So the fact that I was giving this book a chance was like, and I ended up like really enjoying it. It was super cute. Evie and Vincent's relationship was super cute, and I loved it so much. And I aspire to have it. Not exactly. Not only that, but I love the way she and Vincent met. I love the way the characters grew together, and I absolutely loved the ending. The ending was a great way to have it all come together. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about was the LGBTQ+ characters. I very much applaud Carrie for involving these characters because it's very important, and to involve everyone and especially involve this community. She greatly elaborated on this with Evie's brother. It wasn't till later, but he wasn't a huge character till later. And she also touched on this with Vincent. And while I really loved that, I wish Vincent's bisexuality came up a bit later. Would have been very cute if in the end Vincent possibly ended up with a male and that he was very happy with that. I thought that could have been a possible ending to kind of bring it up again perhaps, but I know a friend of mine had pointed out this could possibly be a problem just because you don't want that to be viewed as the second best thing, or the same-sex partner as the second best thing because he couldn't be with Evie. And by no means did I want that, but somewhere in there I wish it would have touched a little bit more. Another thing is she didn't really touch on the time period this was set in, which I understand and is fine. I've met many people who have written small stories and stuff, and sometimes the goal is to not kind of give away a time setting because you want them to kind of imagine it, and if that is given, then it can kind of give away a plot point or something like that. That really wasn't the case in this. It kind of just felt like it was a little bit all over the place, and I couldn't quite pinpoint where it was. At one point I thought it was like maybe the 1970s or something like that, or a very old-fashioned era because of the way she interacted with her mom. Her mom was very strict. They kind of grew up in this white collar, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but like that kind of fancy notebook type family where the mother doesn't approve of certain things, she wants you to marry a certain person type thing. So for a while I thought it was like in the 1980s, 1970s or something like that. And then when she went to, I think it was New York, maybe. It's been a while since I read it. Wherever she went to get a job for animation, she it seemed very modern day. When she described people's clothes and the certain trends and technologies and stuff along those lines, it felt more modern day. And I was like, okay, maybe it's modern day with like the parents being super old and traditional. But then it kind of just jumped back and forth and it didn't quite know where it was going. I know she had talked about in some sort of vlog that she purposely didn't say it on purpose of what time period it was supposed to be in, and that's fine. But again, if you had been a bit more clear, more specified, or at least decided on if it was old-fashioned or if it was going to be modern age in the mix a little bit, just clearing that up would have made it better, because I felt like I had to exert some energy to figure out where I was or when this was supposed to be, because it helped me kind of picture what the buildings would look like and so on and so forth, and it would have just helped a little bit better. In addition, the book was supposed to be magic realism, which is completely fine, but it wasn't specified. And there were little bits and pieces that were kind of supposed to point to it being magic realism, but I hadn't heard of magic realism prior to this book. I did not know it was a genre. They would like write letters to to each other on the bird, little one, and it would fly back and forth. My first thought was like, okay, that's kind of unrealistic, but I bet it could technically happen. And when her son, much later in life, was able to find this bird and able to find the notes and put them back later, I'm like, okay, maybe she's just doing it and it's just a stretch. You know, that's fine. But it was part of the magic realism, I guess. The part where I really realized that it was supposed to be magic realism was much later in the book, and it just really caught me off guard. If you've read the book, when she's getting ready for her wedding day, because she cannot give her heart to Vincent, she takes out her heart and buries it into the ground, which grows a tree. That becomes very important later. But I didn't, so it was supposed to simulate that it was like kind of a cage that opens. I was so confused. I read this 6 different times that I thought she like ripped it out of her chest, and I was like, is she dead? I don't understand. But it turns out it was supposed to, because it was magic realism, like that's totally allowed in this universe, that she could take her heart and stuff. And I thought symbolically it was beautiful, and the fact that it grew into a tree and that became super important later when he visited the tree. Prior to that, I just had no idea what was going on. It completely caught me off guard, and so I just wish she would have clarified it was supposed to be magic realism. And maybe she did in a video, but just more clarification even prior in the book, because the only 2 times it kind of showed magic realism was with the bird and this. Besides that, it was kind of like up in the air, and it just seemed like fiction. I know it was marketed as women's fiction. I've seen many reviews and I've read many things, and you could just read this if you read this book yourself. You can come to terms with this, that it's very clear Carrie's supposed to be Evie and Vincent is supposed to be Pete. I know she even touched on this, where she kind of based it off of herself as well. People kind of got mad at her for this. The fact that she kind of based it on herself and based it on, I don't think that's something to get mad at. Specifically, let me clarify, I don't think it's something to get mad at when it's her first fiction book. Personally, if you've written and you criticize someone for basing a character off themselves, you're a liar. Because at one point or another, I feel like with any writer, one point or another, you have based a character on yourself, and it's, at least with me, this character was a huge Mary Sue. So, like, I think we should give Carrie a little break on that, because that's a thing that happens all the time. It's her first book, like, let her have it. Like, let her be this character. It's totally fine. If she continued to do this throughout the rest of her books, then it would kind of be an issue. But it's like, it's her first one. Let her have it. It's like, it's not like a bunch of other people haven't done it before. Further, the story flowed very well overall, but it was kind of very clear that Carrie wrote it from chapter to chapter, and it works for some people. I'm kind of someone who writes all over the place. Why I specifically bring this up was there was a certain chapter, and I think she admitted to this, where it kind of just came out of nowhere when she thought of this, and was when, I can't remember his name, it's Vincent's old roommate is supposed to go to like some high school, sing because it's his first gig, and then he's in a dress, and then he's drunk, and then he throws up on himself, or he threw up on himself prior, blah 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 blah. And then the police is called, and then Vincent hits the cop or whatever. And I understand that the chapter was supposed to show this important plot point, because this was a turning point where Vincent was now in the newspaper, as well as Evie, and her mom got furious and demanded she come home. So it was important because it gave her a limited amount of time, and it kind of created a dent, and there was trouble, and they weren't sure if they could be together. At least this was the first part that made it kind of impossible for them. It at least started to feel impossible for them to be together. But it just kind of, I felt there was better ways about going about this. I didn't think the chapter was necessary. I thought the point could have been made a different way in a shorter amount of time. But I mean, it was humorous, but that's just my opinion. Overall, these were just things I thought could be better improved on. This isn't meant to be rude, or by no means to mean to bash her in this, especially because it was her first book. And again, it was very well done. It was very cute. I loved the orange candies and everything else, and I've even written a small song for this. So I clearly am a fan of the book, and I clearly still am a fan of Carrie. I personally wanted to make this not only because I want to share the book and talk about it, but because I felt the reviews were very divided. It was either I hated this book and she shouldn't have published, like there was so many things wrong with it, and then there was a mix of all of this was fantastic, this was the best book I've ever read type thing, and I felt it kind of fell in the middle. Once again, just to reiterate for probably the 3rd time, I say these things and I point out these things because I think Carrie's a very good writer, and I think she can very much improve, and she's continuing to improve everything else. But I like to view her as my friend, and I love to push my friends to make their writing better and their plots better and everything else. So hopefully this gave a few points of maybe things she can improve on in her future writing if she ever sees this, as well as give someone who hasn't read it or someone who has read it kind of things to think about. Overall, overall, I'd probably give this, I want to give it like a 3 out of 5. It wasn't terrible. I thought it was pretty well established. It was very cute, the cover's beautiful, but there were definitely some things to improve on. But for her first book, I thought this was pretty good. This was pretty fantastic, so good on you, Carrie. Keep writing. Yeah, that's my review for On the Other Side. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I read her second book, All That She Can See, and I'll be making a review for that one as well tomorrow, probably. But until then, I'm Captain Anna. Raise the sails, full speed ahead, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.